Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 11th of May, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar index. And I produced quite a big report yesterday, addressing 10 very big questions for the markets at the moment. A lot of it covered in Charts Today, so keep an eye out for that report coming out today. We start by looking at the dollar index, weakening just a little bit here. We've not activated the downside target short term, but we just inevitably have had quite a strong run. We're coming off the top. You're still long-term bearish. Short-term bearish, but the medium-term chart is looking still pretty bullish, having had that run. We're just retracing some of this move, and it'll be interesting to see how much it does that, and when we cross back above the cloud, will we have another leg in the dollar up? So looking at euro dollar, inevitably that's strengthening on that dollar weakness, and we're seeing here just above the cloud, so short-term strength showing through on the euro there. Against the yen, the dollar is actually holding its bull trend on the short-term chart, not still quite through on the medium-term chart, just lagging a little bit here. But interestingly, the dollar yen rate is holding up. And if we look at sterling, sterling weakening against the dollar, so we are just seeing that carry through where the sterling is the weaker of the two. Even though dollar is weakening, sterling is weakening more so. And we've got these downside targets at 133, 134.29, so about another 1% lower. And if we look at the short-term chart against the euro, we see here again sterling fell yesterday heavily on that interest rate decision. So we are just seeing that coming through. Although longer term against the Swiss franc, we're seeing sterling strengthening, we are just back to bearish below the cloud. Downside of 132 against the Swiss franc, about 2.7%. And against the Aussie dollar, we've seen the fall off here as well. fall sharply yesterday on that interest rates. About 1.5% downside potential still, not managing on the lagging line to get convincingly through the cloud. So sterling still does have some issues. Bitcoin back below the $9,000 level, so that is a little bit disconcerting for Bitcoin, not managing to break through on the medium-term chart. So we are looking bearish. 8,660 is the downside target on the short-term chart. That's about 1.6% lower. Looking at U.S. stock markets. Continued their recovery yesterday. We saw the S&P 500 index up nearly 1%, just starting to nudge above the cloud here. The Nasdaq also was looking strong. A lot of the tech majors putting in quite a strong performance. The Nasdaq is now looking set to recover fully. The Dow Jones index also just showing its strength on the short-term chart, but not through yet on the medium term. And the Russell 2000 index we see here is also just starting to nudge new highs. So a very strong performance there yesterday, up another 0.5% for the top 2,000 shares in the US. The futures this morning, we're seeing the S&P pretty flat, just down very, very slightly, and the Nasdaq E-mini again down slightly. So just hard to say at this stage, but the futures look set to tell us that the US might just open a little lower. Nothing very dramatic there. The FTSE 100 is also fairly flat at the moment, but looking pretty strong above the cloud. And if we look at the FTSE 250, also looking pretty strong. The UK market's looking stronger on that weaker sterling, really. And if we look at the DAX, we're strong there medium term. And the CAC Quarante also now just nudging new all-time highs. Not much more work to do to get through there. The Japanese market was also up about 1% yesterday, so that's looking stronger. Not quite through on the medium-term chart yet. And the Hang Seng was up quite strongly as well, just starting to get through on the medium-term chart. One of my concerns that I talk about consistently is the Chinese market underperforming, and we see here we're still pretty bearish medium term, and we were down about 1/3% overnight. India was up 1/4%, looking pretty strong, and the Australian market was actually very little changed, down very, very slightly. So, but still looking pretty bullish, and again testing new all-time highs. The big story, of course, of late has been Brent Crude. We're sitting at 77.30. These targets were given and met. We see here. So we're really awaiting new targets as if oil really needs to sell off, and then a thrust to give us a new upside target, but still looking very strong. And we do have this short-term upside of 7%. That's to 83, which again, going above 80 for Brent would be quite a thing. And WTI is holding above $70 at 71, and again we've got upside targets to 73, 76 dollars. So it looks like WTI could get into the mid 70s. Just a shortage of the longer term targets. US Natgas jumped yesterday on storage numbers. We're at 281, so looking better, but of course medium and long term the charts have a lot to do. And if we go to gold, gold is sitting at 1322 at the moment. So we are seeing here gold climbing higher, activating some upside targets. This range, in fact, I talk about this in the report, this range, we're just testing the bottom of that range, bouncing off the cloud there on the lagging line. Does look like we're going back to the top of the range at around 1350. We've got upside targets. Gold in this seesaw, need to wait for the summer rally, which we saw last year. Maybe we're going to see that and break out and activate these big upside targets for gold. So looking pretty strong. Uh, Silver also now bullish above the cloud. Medium and long-term charts have got a little bit more work to do, unlike gold. Taking a look at US 10-year yield, sitting at 2.95%. Just selling off a little bit there, but the yield is still in earshot of that 3% level. Apple was again up strongly yesterday. We saw 1.4% upside here, so just pushing higher, making new all-time highs. So that's obviously very good for US stocks. And Amazon also just pushing higher. The tech's really just improving. Amazon was up only slightly yesterday, but it's still looking pretty strong. Google is still probably the most worrying of the stocks. It was up 1.4% yesterday, so looking a little bit better, but really lagging behind the market, and the medium-term picture is still not clear on Google. And Facebook did actually move above the cloud, up 1.5% at 185, back into the mid 180s. Remember, 190 was the level we sort of reached at the high point, and we're really nudging that. So Facebook has shaken off all the negative press for the moment, and the stock is running. And we are seeing targets well into the $200 area. And also Microsoft activating this new upside target to 24% higher. Lots of medium-term targets looking pretty strong all round. Tech recovering, ending the week. If we have a good day today, even if we're flat, we will end the week looking pretty strong on markets. That's it for today. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday.